Okay, everybody, let's begin. Welcome to the Teaching Kitchen. My name is Emily. I'm going to be your chef today, and our focus is on meatless meze platter. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. Nice to meet you, and thank you so much for being here. And for those of you who are returning visitors and guests, welcome back. It's so nice to be here with you on this afternoon and spend some time together connecting over the meatless meze. So a little bit about the meze platter and why I chose this particular class. Meze is a style of dining in the Mediterranean as well as in the Middle East that is small plates that are really meant to stimulate your appetite. But unlike those, appetizer mezes that you might have heard of, the meze is really more of an experience. It's a whole meal combining both hot and cold vegetarian and meat items often. Some common ones that you may be familiar with are things like baba ganoush, which is made from eggplant. Hummus, of course, has made its way over here. We eat a lot of hummus in the US now. Lots of salads are often a part of the meze, tabbouleh. And I think what I love about the meze style of eating is it's family style. A meze table may include things like bread and crackers, pita, fruit, some sweets. So there's a little bit of everything. And sometimes it does include more substantial meat dishes like kebabs. We're going to be making a falafel today, which does not include meat, but it is more substantial. And sometimes it's served with an aperitif, sometimes it's not, but it's truly a social event, which is one of the things I love about it. I think all of us are maybe missing our social events a little bit. And meze dining really encourages conversation and lingering at the table. Dishes are brought out sort of one by one after the next, sometimes on a big platter so you can mix flavors. And it's a really nice kind of eating style that I really love. It also engages all of your senses and all of your sort of taste and textures. You get lots of different colors. You get, you often get lots of different textures. So it's a nice kind of full sensory experience, I think, to enjoy a meze platter. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, you may not know how to ask questions. If you have questions, please put them in our chat box. That has already been started by our moderator, Alida, who will read them to me. Thank you for, again, this is a meze class, so engage with your questions, start a conversation, linger, and feel free to kind of feel connected to one another as well. So with that, I do have a lot of dishes that I'm excited to share with you. Our first is going to be roasted carrots, and we're going to quarter them up, roast them with a little bit of cracked fresh coriander. If you're not familiar with coriander, it looks like this. It's actually the seed from which cilantro grows. So you couldn't per se plant your coriander spice in the ground and grow cilantro, but cilantro eventually it does go to seed, and you'll see that those seeds, once they're dried, that's what coriander is made from. So they're definitely quite closely connected. So we're going to be making roast carrots with a little coriander and a honey olive oil glaze, and we're going to be serving that with a whipped feta. And our second dish is going to be the baked falafels. This is a great veggie dish. Everybody loves falafel. I think it's one of those things that everybody can kind of get behind. I use lots of herbs, lots of spices. We're going to be using za'atar today. If you're not familiar with za'atar, it's a mix of spices. It's sometimes a little hard to find, but you can find recipes for making your own za'atar using your household spices, and I'd be happy to supply you with that after class. And what else are we making today? We're making crackers, our very own crackers. Crackers are one of those things that they're very expensive to buy in the store, and they're not that hard to make. So I'm excited to share that with you. And we're going to make a dipping sauce as well for the falafel. So I think that's enough talking. I think I better get to it. We have a lot to do. We're going to start off with our carrots. And you can see these have been washed and quartered. I'm going to use the cast iron skillet. I'm going to pop it in the oven in this. I could put this into like a sheet pan with parchment paper as well. So either one is fine, but I'm not doing that many carrots. So I want them to be, kind of spaced out enough that they have some room to roast and get some color on them. We're going to also, I'll show you how I worked with that. So this is your carrot. I didn't peel it. These are organic carrots. I just washed them well and washed them well and wished them well. And I am going to cut off the top. I'm going to cut right down, make a tunnel, and be careful when you're doing this because carrots like to roll around. So now you have a flat surface, you can quarter them. And I like to keep these long. So I'm going to keep them long, pop them in just like that. We're going to add some honey, about 2 tablespoons. Will get drizzled on there. The olive oil I put on the bottom, but I'm going to put a little bit on top as well. And we're going to add a pinch of salt and our cracked coriander. So I'm going to use a mortar and pestle. I like to kind of put my hand on top to try to keep the seeds from jumping out. And if you see, I'm working around the edges. I'm not going up and down because that seems to be pretty ineffective in my opinion. So I'm working around, kind of grinding it down. And you just want to kind of crack these. You don't need to grind them too much. So just to kind of open them up. Now they're ready to go in. And we're going to put this into our preheated oven. So first dish, easy enough, right? Going right in. Questions or comments about that recipe?
None at this point, Chef Emily.
Okay. All right. And I know I did that pretty swiftly. I just want to make sure everybody caught every detail. Our next dish, I'm going to make the whipped feta a little bit later, but I want to get started on the dough for these crackers. So I have my little mise en place here, and I have a mix of, here I have measured out my all-purpose flour and my whole wheat flour. I don't know if you can see the color differentiation there. It's kind of hard to see with the glare of the light. So I'm going to put those in my bowl. I had a whisk. It's over here. And I'm going to whisk them together. I'm going to add some salt and some sugar. So I have both of those measured out here. Just a little bit of sugar. You don't need much. The sugar is going to help with the browning of the crackers, and it's also going to add, a little tiny bit of sweetness. So you just want to mix that together. Keep a light touch. And I have my water here, as well as some olive oil. I'm not going to add all the water right away because you can always add a little bit more later. I'm going to switch from the whisk because it's going to get very clumpy very quickly. So I'm going to switch from the whisk and go to a wooden spoon to just kind of get it started. Stir it up, and we're going to let this rest for about 15 minutes or so. Looking at the curriculum for this class, we might go a little bit over today. You usually keep a tight time and keep it to 45 minutes, but I had a lot of good recipes I wanted to share with you. So I hope that that's okay for everyone. So I'm just kind of getting it started with the spoon. Now I'm going to switch to my hands, and you do want to kind of knead this together. So until it forms, a nice smooth ball. Questions or comments? We're going to let this rest 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, there was a question about whether the video was going to be provided because someone was having a little trouble keeping up.
Yes.
And I said, yes, you usually post it after that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people who join our classes, they will just watch the demonstration, and then you're going to have the video after the class as well. It'll be posted on our website if you ever lose it. So you never fear. I know I'm moving fast here. Yeah, thank you. So has anyone ever tried to make their own crackers before? If so, go ahead and leave a comment and tell us a little bit about how that went for you. I'm very curious. I like to make my own crackers. Again, as I mentioned, it is expensive to buy crackers. Not only is it expensive, but often there are a lot of preservatives in those crackers. If you look at the ingredients, there's all kinds of things that they put in them to make them shelf stable. And while I'm sure they're all food safe, I try to keep to the whole foods as much as possible, just to make sure that I'm getting as much nutrient density as I can. And that's sort of my food philosophy. So we're going to let that rest. Pop this over here, 10-15 minutes or so. I'm just going to time myself. And then once it's rested, we'll roll it out We're gonna put a little milk and egg yolk, mix that together. We're gonna wash that on top with our pastry brush here. And we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of za'atar and sea salt over it. So you can use like a nice flaky sea salt if that's what you like, but feel free to add your own twist on it. You can put sesame seeds, poppy seeds. You know, you can definitely play around with different spices if you want to add like a couple of spices into the dough as well. It's kind of fun to make your own crackers because you can engage your creativity, and you know, really that's always a fun thing to do, I think. So sliding that back. Oh, hang on a second. I seem to have lost my video for a moment. I apologize. Hang on. Okay. Can you all still see me and hear me?
Yes.
Interesting. Oh, good. Okay. All right. I'm not too sure what happened there. Well, maybe. All right. Good. No problem is good then. All right. I will just carry on. Sorry about that. So we're going to start up making so we're going to let that rest. We've got our carrots in the oven. We're letting the crackers rest, and then we're going to roll them out, section them off, and roll them out and bake them. And then we're going to be making these falafels as well. So if anyone has tried to make their own falafel, be very curious to know what your experience is. Falafel is often served, it's fried. So I don't always love to eat falafel out, but I do like to make it at home because you can bake them. And they taste, I really think they taste just as good, but you know, without all of the heavy frying oils and stuff like that. So with that, we're going to get started. It is definitely useful to have a food processor for this part. If you don't have a food processor, you could probably use a blender. The blender might get a little too mushy though, so you can try though. I think the blender could work with some, you know, diligent scraping down and kind of working it in. So we're going to start with our garlic. I have 3 garlic cloves here. I'm just going to take the skin off of the 4th. A lot of garlic in this recipe. If you're not a garlic fan, you can leave it out. If you're not a garlic fan, I hope you can become one because it's so good for you. And I certainly find that garlic is different depending on how you treat it. So if you smash it and you're really rough with it, like we're going to be today, it's going to bring out more of that garlic flavor that some people may be averse to. If you slice it gently and thinly and you treat it nicely, it's a little less abrasive. So garlic can be different depending on that. Garlic can also be different depending on, you know, if it's fresh or if it's been sitting for a long time. I find that the flavor really develops more over time. So if you get, you know, fresh garlic from the farmer's market, you may find that the taste isn't the same as garlic that's been sitting in the grocery store for a long time. So we've got that in there. We're going to add our chickpeas. So these are canned garbanzo beans. And traditionally, falafel is made with the green chickpeas. They are basically they're younger chickpeas, and sometimes you can find those, and they do have a little bit of a different taste. They're a little bit grassier. They're hard to find though, so I didn't want to use those. So we're going to just be using the regular chickpeas, a can of those. We're going to add some slivered almonds. So these are almonds that have been blanched and skinned, and you can find them in the store. They're called slivered almonds. It's nice and not, you know, usually I am an advocate for almond skins and skins of anything, like carrots. But in this case, the skins, they can be a little bit bitter and overtake the flavor. So I like to be mindful of the flavor as well. We're going to add some olive oil. And all of your, I've measured everything out, but everything is in your recipe as well. Some za'atar spice. And then I have some ground flax meal. Now, flax is going to kind of help as an egg binder to help keep these together. And of course, we need a little salt and pepper. But that's pretty much it. We're going to add, we're going to get that going. And then we're going to also add tons of herbs. Wait till you see how much we're adding. So we've got a whole handful of cilantro and a whole handful of parsley. So I'm just going to kind of roughly chop that, just to allow the food processor to have an easier time of working this down. we'll sprinkle it in and kind of chop up, probably more than a cup of each, but if you can find nice fresh parsley. I did throw some stems in there, not the thickest ones, but there are some little stems in there. So we'll pulse this together. Beautiful. We're gonna need to get a scrape here. A little spatula is great when you're working with these food processors because you do have to kind of work it down. It's really easy. I mean, it's quite an approachable recipe. So once it starts to go together in a ball, it's done. You can see it sort of started, everything was spread out, and now everything kind of like balled itself up on one side. That's my indicator of, okay, this has been, has churned enough. So we got to get our sheet pan ready. So let's get that. You want a sheet pan with parchment paper. And you're going to first start by putting a little oil down on that parchment. So you're going to kind of oil these on both sides. And that makes sense, right? Because if you were frying it, it would have oil on all sides. So parchment and oil is going to help you out with that. I'm going to pull out this blade. Be careful with your food processor blade. It is really, really sharp. You don't want to leave it in a cloudy sink full of other stuff. Just put it aside and wash it separately because it can, obviously you can get hurt. And I'm just going to scrape this all together. Let me see, I have a little bowl here. Pop it in the bowl. Oops, there's a little, well, I guess it doesn't matter if there's a parsley leaf in there because there's parsley in here too. So get your bowl. And then you're going to form these into little falafel balls. Now, if you have like a nice ice cream scoop, like I have one, but it's kind of ginormous, I guess I have a lot of ice cream. So you can use this to kind of form, make a shape and plop it down. That works really well. This is about double the size that I like my falafel. So you can shape them by hand, pat them down. You're basically making like essentially like a little chickpea patty. Questions or comments? I know I went really fast, but you can see this is pretty easy, right? It's just food processed. We've got lots of herbs and spices. Yeah, they're really, really colorful. Making like, you almost make like little croquettes with these. You can see I'm kind of scooping each one and then breaking them in half.
So Chef Emily, E wanted to know how long will the videos be available online?
Indefinitely. As long as I know, as far as I know, they are up on our website and they're on YouTube and they can be shared. And please do, if you have anyone that if you have anyone that you think might enjoy these classes, it's always really, really helpful to our community to share with one another. So yeah, I think most of the best events that I've gone to have all been over the past year or so, have all been word of mouth as well. I think just because you trust someone and they recommend something, and that makes a big difference, I think. So yeah.
And Marie asked the question, do you use whole milk?
So for the egg wash, for the crackers, you can use whole milk, you can use almond milk. Is this, if you'd like to clarify in the chat, is this the general question? Like, do I use whole milk at home?
I wasn't sure what that is.
Yeah. So yeah, feel free to clarify your question. We'll come back to that. So these are ready. They've been a little glaze on both sides. We'll put them into the oven. The carrots smell really, really good. And those falafels are going to bake. I think I definitely put the cooking time in your packet, didn't I? Yeah, for about 30 minutes or so until they're golden. You can flip them over halfway through cooking if you want. You don't have to. It is going to ensure, a little bit of a better, goldenness on both sides. So yeah, if you wanted to flip them halfway, you certainly could do that. Okay.
So the milk question was for the crackers.
Okay, for the crackers, yeah. So thank you. I was like, whole milk. Sometimes. So yes, I think that's included. It doesn't really matter what kind of milk you use for the crackers, but 1 tablespoon of milk or almond milk if you're dairy free. You can use whole milk. You can use, a little heavy cream, like whatever kind of dairy thing you have. It's just for glazing them. So it's pretty, it's almost time for that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So we've got the crackers in here, the carrots in, the falafel in. We have 2 sauces to make, but I want to roll these crackers out first. The sauces will be really, really quick as well. How are we doing on time? I think we're doing okay. Yeah, I think we're doing okay. The wheels are turning. Are we? Yeah, I think we'll be all right. So let's see. We're going to start, if you're following along, this is going to be let's see, we've done step 4. We've done step 5. We're about to do step 5. And then we're going to put parchment down. We're going to roll the cracker out onto the parchment. Should be very, very thin. You might need a little bit of flour just so it doesn't stick. So I'm actually going to scoot this cutting board out of the way. I'm going to use this counter surface here. And you'll notice I have this under my cutting board. This is what most of you have under your rugs in your living room. This is so the rug doesn't slip, but you can buy these in the hardware store, get them, they're pretty inexpensive. And then you can put them under your cutting boards so the cutting board doesn't flip around while you're trying to cut something, especially if you're cutting something like a carrot or a squash or something that's really heavy and hard. It's good to have a good stable surface to do that on, and they can be washed and reused, which is why I like them. And they can be cut to size. If you have a small cutting board, you make a little one, you can play around with that. Okay, so let's get started on our cracker. I have some parchment back here. And again, I'm gonna cut this in half. It's about time. Cut it right in half. I'm using a knife, which is probably not the best thing to do this with. Dough scraper would be better. Oh, I have one here. And then each one should be cut kind of into thirds. So 1, 2, 3. So while you're not working with these 2, put them aside. I'll do this one first. And cover them back up and just let them rest. Oh my gosh, I made a smiley face in my bowl. I just want to share with everybody. See, I'm happy to be back. Oh no, my eyes. All right, there we go. So we're gonna go ahead and roll that up. And you're gonna want this to be a very thin cracker. That's, I think, the beauty of it. So get your rolling pin ready. This is like, did anyone ever read Mickey and the Knight's Kitchen? It's a children's book. It's one of my favorites for obvious reasons. And he gets, he dreams about, basically falls into this giant kitchen. This is how I feel when I hold this rolling pin, because it's really way too big than what I need it for. But if you don't know that children's book, it's a really good one, Mickey in the Night Kitchen. So we'll put a little flour and cut that out. And we're just gonna roll away from you. It does help to kind of brace the parchment paper against your waist, so that when you're rolling, it doesn't take off. So that's a good trick if you've never done that before. Go ahead and roll away from yourself. Should be fairly thin, very elastic. I'm going to flip it over because I want to get to this side too. And that's it. You want these to be, yeah, go ahead, Alina.
What is the name of the book again? Somebody asked the question so I can type it in.
Yeah, it's Mickey in the Night Kitchen. It's a children's book. And it's a fun one. It's really cute. Although, I think it is a good, I'm trying to remember at what age I read it at. Probably like 6 or 7. So these are nice, long, thin crackers. We're gonna bake them just like this, and then you kind of like break them up. So it's really kind of a fun meze event. So there you go. Nice, long, thin, stretchy. Place it on a sheet with parchment paper. I'll do one more. I don't think you want to watch me roll crackers all day. As fun as this is, the dough is lovely. It has a really nice elasticity to it. It has that olive oil in there, remember? So it's got a nice, a little bit of fat in it. And again, like, you're making your own crackers, so you can ensure that you're using the best quality oils and that you're using really good flour and you're using, good stuff. I mean, crackers are nice because you can kind of have them as part of a snack or part of a meal. You can top them with some avocado and smoked salmon and just have that as lunch. So yeah, I'm a big fan. And they're nice and thin, so they're usually not too high in carbs, which I know everyone is mindful of. So you see nice, thin, long crackers. Let's go ahead and top that with our egg wash mixture. So I've got the egg and the milk together, just the egg yolk. I didn't specify, just the egg yolk. You don't need the egg white in here. Go ahead and paint that. This is fun. I have to say, this is really fun. Doing this, like kneading the dough and the painting. It's a really nice creative process. So set that aside. Let's remember we're adding our seasoning on top. So we've got that za'atar spice. We've got some sea salt. So this is a Celtic sea salt, but you could also find a, nice flaky salt just to get those like little salty crunch texture, textural elements that we kind of expect from a cracker. And you're done. You've made your own crackers. So let's put these in. Hope there's room in the oven, let's say. Might be time for the carrots to come out. And I always try to keep a neat workspace. I'm going to keep this dough covered up. Maybe I'll make the rest of these after class. Just make sure it stays covered because I don't want it to dry out. How's everyone doing? How's everybody feeling okay? Everybody cooking along with me or watching? Anybody want to make anything we've made so far? This is a meze class, so we have to linger and chat with one another. What about you, Alita?
So
what have you been cooking lately? Tell us.
I found a muffin top pan, and I've been making muffin tops all week long. So they're so good.
That is awesome. That's the best part of the muffin.
Yes, the best part of the muffin. So I've been making muffin tops.
I love that. I've also seen they have like a brownie pan that's designed like a maze for people who just like the corners of the brownies. So you just have like corners. Yeah, I think those are really fun too. Yeah, it's amazing. There's so many different cooking gadgets and gizmos out there, right?
I love each one.
Oh no, they're the best. So our carrots are pretty much done here. Let's take those out. Let's make some space for our crackers. So it could go a little bit longer, but in the interest of time, I'm gonna move them along. So how do I know that they could go a little bit longer? I've got some that are soft. I've got some that are, the smaller ones are definitely a little bit softer. Yeah, I would definitely put these in a little bit longer if I had another oven, because I would want them to get more kind of golden and crunchy. Let me see if there's a bit too tight in there. So I'm just gonna use our imaginations. But yeah, they're softening up, which is really good. They're definitely getting some golden color. And then we're gonna serve these with our whipped feta topping. So let's go ahead and make that now. This is very, very easy. You take your feta cheese. I do prefer to buy a block of feta cheese instead of the like crumbled up feta, even though I am going to crumble it up now, because I don't know, I find the crumbled feta, first of all, sometimes they add stuff to it so that it doesn't congeal. They'll add like a cellulose. You see that a lot in cheese. Cellulose is basically like, I think of it as like sawdust. It's kind of just like plant fiber matter, and it's not, it's not that, it doesn't really do much for the flavor, but it's an anti-caking agent basically. So I like it caked, and then I like to crumble it up myself. And you can really, work this through your fingers. And we're going to add a little creme fraiche to this. The feta is, of course, very salty. So if you are, watching your salt, you could use a little bit less, or just don't have, as much of the sauce, just have a little bit of it as sort of like a topping, which is really what it is. And then, if you are watching your fat as well, there are some low fat fetas out there. I think that they're pretty good. I think the taste is fine. And then if you're vegan, they do sell some vegan feta cheeses. And Those are pretty flavorful as well. I've seen some good like nut-based ones that are made with cashews, and they're surprising. They're really quite good. So this is pretty straightforward here. We're going to take our creme fraiche, only about half a cup. So if I'm looking at this container, it's 7 ounces. I know 8 ounces is a cup, so I can just scoop that right in, and you can kind of mix it together with your spoon. This is it. I mean, it's really a very simple recipe. And I like the combination of the feta and the creme fraiche because creme fraiche is not, it's not salty. It's almost sweet. You know, it's got this lovely, lovely flavor. So when you combine the two, you kind of tamper a little bit the saltiness of the feta. So yeah, you can kind of use your spoon to kind of whip these together. A whisk would work too. But it's kind of gives it, the creme fraiche also kind of gives it that like whipped cream cheese, looks like whipped cream cheese texture. You could probably use, if you're being, again, mindful of fat, you could probably find like a low fat whipped cream cheese. You could use that instead of the creme fraiche. That would work fine and be, you know, very flavorful and still give you the texture and kind of the taste we're looking for with a little less fat. So meze, here we come. So you can see this kind of has like this nice, light, fluffy texture. Pretty simple one, right? And this can be served, we're serving it with the carrots today. It's nice complementary flavors with the, you know, deep roasted earthiness from the carrots that you're getting. You're getting that sweetness from the honey that we drizzled on there, which balances the cheese saltiness out really nicely. It's just a great kind of like complementary flavor dish, and it's very easy to, you know, put together, as you can see. All right, we've got one more thing going on these carrots. I have some pistachios. So these are already shelled and they're unsalted. You can now buy shelled unsalted pistachios, which I think is a very dangerous thing because at least the shell slows me down a bit, you know, when I'm eating them. But, you know, so for snacking on, I prefer the shelled ones because it's just way too easy to eat handfuls of the unshelled ones. But for cooking, I do prefer the ones that are unshelled. Obviously, it takes a lot of time out of, you know, spending your whole day in the kitchen. So for this one, I am going to kind of go up and down a bit because these are bigger than the coriander seeds. So if you kind of go around the edges like we did for the coriander seeds, it does grind them pretty well, but occasionally it does take a little tapping to get these right where we need them. So this is a mortar and pestle. If you don't have one, a lot of households don't. Ooh, pistachio, run away. You can pulse them in your food processor. You can also put them in a plastic bag and grab that rolling pin, roll them out that way, and that way they'll get crushed. So you don't need a mortar and pestle to crush your own pistachios or any kind of nuts. All right, so that'll go on top when we're ready. Okay, one more sauce to make. This one is for the falafel. So I have some ice cold water. Let me see, it's still ice cold? It's still pretty cold. We've got some tahini sauce. Now tahini, if you're not familiar with tahini, it's very much like peanut butter. It's made from ground sesame seeds. Has a different taste, of course, than peanut butter, but it's really good. And sesame seeds we know are good for us as well. They've got a lot of calcium. I'm just gonna check on our friends in the oven because things are smelling very good. Might need to rotate my pan a bit. Let's check on the falafel. Let me show you what those are looking like. I have I think I have a spatula over here somewhere. Let's see. Yeah. So they are looking nice. They're browning a bit on the bottom. I am going to flip them over. As I mentioned, that this is optional. I do kind of like the browning effect on both sides. Some people don't really care about that. I think it's quite nice. So I'm going to flip them and we'll put them back in, let them keep cooking for a little bit longer. Crackers are starting to puff up, create little air bubbles, which is really cute. And we're gonna make our sauce. So this one is pretty easy. We've got the tahini, we've got some water. Put that right in there. You're going to add a garlic clove. This is a small one, but I think, oh, I can get the skin off without my knife. I think I need my knife. I'm just gonna trim the bottom to help peel it. There we go. Now I can peel it. a little bit hard to peel garlic cloves. You don't have to peel it. You could just smash it using your knife the way that I usually do. I just put my cutting board over there. So there we go. Okay, so I peeled it. Maybe I'll just cut it in half so the poor blade can manage it a little bit better. So far, so good, right? Nice and easy. We've got a fresh lemon. Notice I didn't cut all the way through. I'm going to kind of break it open and go the rest because I didn't want my blade to hit the counter there because that's not good for your blade. And then we're going to squeeze our lemon juice in here. So this is going to give it a really nice bright flavor. Water, tahini, lemon, pinch of salt, and then you can add some herbs. So I have some nice fresh mint leaves here. Herbs is completely optional if you don't want to add herbs. And this is just the nicest sauce recipe. I use it a lot with falafel, but I also just use it as a dip with veggies. It's very flavorful and pretty easy to put together. So here we go, a little salt. It's probably more than I needed. And then I've got my herbs here. I'm going to clear some of this out of the way so you can see better. And for this, you can use your blender or you can use, I have this handheld immersion blender. See if this works. We'll start it on low and just let it work its magic. So you do want to really emulsify it. Notice I'm not pulling it above the line of the liquid. If you do that, you're going to get tahini sauce all over your kitchen. Let's add some herbs to this. Pop those in, grind them up. Pulse them in a little bit. So I did, I let it emulsify first. Then I kind of added the herbs and I'm just going to pop them a little. Oh, divine. I love this sauce. You can use this as a salad dressing too. It's really good. Throw it on some, garden fresh tomatoes. Use it as a dressing. Nice and thick. I want to show you like the texture of it because it's like really almost fluffy. See that? So, oh, smells good. It's got that really nice earthy, nutty flavor that tahini does, which is one of the reasons I love it. So we have a little bit of time left. I think we're going to finish on time. Let's go ahead and start building our platter. First, a few things about the meze and the Mediterranean diet. Many of you who have taken my classes before know this, but since meze is really common in the Middle East and in the Mediterranean, I just want to talk a little bit about the basics of the Mediterranean diet, which includes, as you can see, lots and lots of plants. Focus on plants as being sort of a veggie forward, it's the center stage, and often meat is a little more complementary to the meal, not the whole thing. We're using a lot of olive oil here. There's no butter. As you can see, we haven't used any butter today. Olive oil, of course, contains all those wonderful monounsaturated fats, which are really good for your heart, really good for your whole body. It's really, for me, it's like culinary gold, olive oil. We're using not as much salt and more of a focus on those garden fresh herbs. I think that is just, it changes the flavor completely when you start including more herbs and spices in your dishes. And I often say that spices and herbs are nutritional powerhouses. They're really small, but they're super mighty. They have a lot of good stuff in them for you. So it's a good thing to try to include. Often we focus on just fruits and vegetables as being the primary source of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants, but there's a lot in those spices and herbs. And this is a great time of year to use them up. There's a limit on red meat. We're focusing, again, more veggie forward. There's a lot of lean meats. You see a lot of chicken, a lot of seafood, a lot of fish, a lot of mollusks and things like that on these plates. Not today. This is, the meatless meze that we're doing, but it's certainly, yeah, they're certainly around. And then some moderate consumption of red wine is often included as part of the Mediterranean diet and style. And it's one of the best diets and lifestyles to support heart health. So it's certainly something to, coupled with physical exercise and, this kind of social interactions that you get, I guess, around a meze table, there's a lot of health benefits to that. Okay, so I smell some goodness happening in there. So let's get that out. I think our falafels are done. You can see how my oven is, how do we say, lopsided. This side, these two are like quite done. And this side, this just has like the right amount of browning. So yeah, these falafel patties are done. We'll let them cool off for a moment. I'm going to take a few carrots for building our meze, and then I'm going to stick them back in because they should be in there a little bit longer, but just for the sake of demonstration. So you want to get a nice platter, something nice and wide that, you know, everybody can kind of reach into. Pop these back in. We'll just pretend that they're done. Our crackers aren't quite there yet. They're getting there. Do we have any questions or comments as I start to put this together?
Yes, we have a few. So when you were talking about the ground flax seeds, you said something binder, and Denise missed that, and I guess I missed it as well, because I know that you said that it will keep the mixture together, but was there anything else you said about that?
Yeah, so Denise, thanks for your question. And basically, we're not, this is a vegan recipe, so it doesn't contain any eggs. You could use an egg instead of the flax, which would be acceptable. But I wanted to use the flax meal just to make it more accessible to anybody who's at your table. But yeah, the ground flax seed, when it's going to go in there and it's going to be exposed to the moisture of the chickpeas, the moisture of the herbs. So moisture and flax meal together create sort of like a gel and have a binding effect. So it keeps the falafels together so they don't just crumble and fall apart. You could probably also use ground chia seeds. They have a very similar effect. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you just want to run a little science experiment in your kitchen, grab a bowl, grab a tablespoon of ground flax, put it in the bowl with 3 tablespoons of water, mix it together and wait 5 to 10 minutes, and you will see what I'm talking about. It creates like a gel, and that gel, it becomes sort of like an egg binder.
So the next question was, what was setar? So I put in what it is, the different components that is made of. They asked about the children's book. Do you use organic flour?
Okay, so great questions. What flours am I using today? I am using all-purpose, sorry, my flour bag got a little tattered. All-purpose King Arthur, that was one. Okay, and then the other flour I found is an organic sprouted whole wheat flour. And I don't always use this one. Sometimes I just use a run-of-the-mill King Arthur whole wheat. But I don't know, I thought this would be fun to try. So this is what this looks like. With the sprouted flours, if you're buying any flours that are sprouted, I do keep them in the fridge or freezer in a plastic bag so that there's no moisture that gets in. Because they're sprouted, they can go rancid more quickly because they're whole and then they're ground down. So with the whole wheat flour, I do like to put those in the fridge or freezer. But as a general rule of thumb, I don't usually buy organic flours necessarily. I don't find that there's yet much of a need to.
Mm-hmm. So a question from Christine, why did you use parchment paper to roll out your dough?
So Christine, the reason I did that was it helps to contain nuts. Because when you roll out on your parchment paper, you don't get your flour all, your countertop all sticky, and then the dough doesn't really stick very much to parchment. And then, yeah, that's mostly why, for like no muss, no fuss cleaning. Yeah,
absolutely. So Beverly answered your question. She says she's been making pesto this time of the year. She grew the basil this year, so she's been using her basil.
Oh my gosh, good for you, Beverly. I hope it came out delicious. I think pesto is a wonderful thing to make and freeze this time of year. And, in the winter months, you can kind of be reminded of the summer flavors that we will be missing very soon. So wonderful.
And then Denise had a question about the section of the supermarket where she can find tahini. A couple of people chimed in, but I can tell you that I think it's ShopRite, they even have a squeeze bottle tahini.
Oh my goodness, I haven't seen that yet.
Before, so it's upside down, so that how sometimes it's really difficult.
The oil, yeah.
But they have it in a jar, they have it in a can, they have it in a bottle.
What do you know? See, I learn something new every time. I love it.
I saw it and loved it myself. So
yeah, that's really neat. The type of tahini, I think, let me see, I have it in the fridge here. I do store it in the refrigerator, right? Because it is ground nuts and seeds. The kind that I'm using today is this one. But as you mentioned, Alita, if you look, the oil is like sitting and floating on top. So it's a little bit, it can be a little bit of a pain to use tahini sometimes. You really have to, like a nut butter, you have to kind of stir it, etc. But it sounds like this squeeze bottle variety is definitely worth checking out. So thank you for mentioning that. Okay, so we've got our meze, we've got our carrots with our little cheese assortment on top. I put a couple mint leaves on there just to make it pretty, some pistachios. I think so much of the meze is also about how it looks on the plate. So we've got our falafels here. You could put the sauce, kind of plunk it on top, or if you wanted to, you could put some sauce on the plate, do a large swoosh with your spoon to kind of get that like comet effect. And then you can do a nice little, assortment, like stack them up a little bit. So you can play around with presentation, serve the sauce on the side, or kind of underneath as you wish. And then we've got our crackers, which they're taking their sweet time. Let's check on them. Let's see. Oh, wow. They look really cool. So they're nice. They're starting to brown a little bit. They're not quite done yet because they're not like super crunchy. I'm just going to take a peek at the bottom. Yeah, they could go a little bit longer. So let me just show you, for the sake of our program today, what they look like. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of browning happening there on the edges. They have these funky little bubbles. That's really nice, right? And we're going to let them keep going for a little bit longer. They haven't quite been in there enough. They're going to crunch as they cool. So they're actually pretty close. But as they cool down, they're going to get nice and crunchy. And that's really what we're looking for in a cracker. Nobody likes a soggy cracker. Nobody likes it, right? So that would go here, and then you kind of break them up and dip things and kind of eat them all together. So that's our class for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching and tuning in, and welcome back after our couple of weeks hiatus. I'm really pleased to be back here in the kitchen with all of you, and I missed our time together. So thank you for watching and for your great questions. And I hope you try out a meze feast. I did have one. Most of you know I'm a big Lori Colwin fan. I did want to read one thing from her book. And okay, so we live in a decade that worships speed, fast food, 1-minute managers, 60-minute gourmets, 3-minute miles. We lace up our running shoes and dash off to get on the fast track. These days, we're surrounded by overabundance, but admire the minimal. Cuisine de messe, high-tech design, thinness. We're far too busy to linger over a long, languid meal. Instead, we bolt a pint of yogurt and suit up for a 5-mile run or a corporate takeover. Food is now glamorous. Glossy magazines display tiny specks of underdone duck breasts lying on oversized plates with the same reverence once lavished on models wearing Valencia dresses. This is the age of high fashion food. Half a braised quail, a thimble of polenta, a sprig of cilantro are supposed to make you feel not satisfied, but superior. A quick meal in a sleek white restaurant in which portions are hummingbird size and the noise is deafening leaves plenty of time for a good 45 minutes on the exercise bike while reading the Wall Street Journal. But when all is said and done, man and women cannot live on charred monkfish and grilled baby vegetables alone. Every now and again, even the fastest of the fast trackers must rest. So I hope that this will inspire you to create a lavish, languid meze, enjoy the last warm days of summer, and come on back to us for more delicious recipes and more time together soon. So thank you, everybody. Alita, any final questions or comments?
There was a comment from Beverly. She says that she jars her pesto, but she covers it with olive oil and stores it in the coldest part of the refrigerator versus freezing. So that's her tip for today. And
Thank
then
you, Beverly. Great tip.
Joan wanted to know if she were going to make her own sitar, what would the measurements be, or what could she substitute? I did say that there are a lot of recipes online that give you different variations. So
yeah, Joan, I'm going to send, I'll send a link to a recipe with, after this class, I'll send a feedback survey as well as the recipe booklet in case you missed it. And then I'll send a za'atar recipe as well. But this one contains sesame seeds, chickpea powder, olive oil, coriander, salt, and that's pretty much all that's in this. So it's a little bit different depending on, you know, where it's from. But yeah, that's the goal. Thank you.
That's it for now. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you again next week. And if you're observing any holidays this week, I'm thinking of all of you as well. So very best and hope to see you again.